Welcome. I am so excited to show you today some of the Autodesk Construction Cloud pre-construction solutions. My name is Emily. I'm a technical solutions executive here at Autodesk, and I am a former estimator. Some of these tools are ones that I wish I had had in my time estimating. Would have saved me so many frustrations. So let's jump in here to my demo project so I can show you what it looks like to do a takeoff in 2D and 3D and push those items seamlessly into your estimate. If you're looking here at my project and you're an existing Autodesk Takeoff user, it may look a little bit different than what you're used to because of the pre-construction naming on the product picker. Still going to allow me to move from, say, BIM Collaborate to pre-construction to build and have everything all tied together for the same project inside of ACC, which is awesome for that connected construction workflows. Packages was renamed to takeoffs, and we have the added element of our estimate in here. Inside of the takeoff, we can create different packages, and I already have one created that I want to work off of today. This is where we're going to go ahead and do those 2D and 3D takeoffs. We have to start by choosing a sheet or a model, and I'm going to filter it down like I already have to my sheets and models that already have takeoffs on them, allowing me to do those 2D and 3D takeoffs. I'm going to come in here to my foundation plan because I have yet to do a takeoff on my slab on grade. Inside of the takeoff types, we can use our ones that are already showing, which I got here by importing from another project or from a project template. You can also go ahead and create different takeoff types, which allows me to pull in line items from the account library where there is already pricing that is going to be associated with each one of these line items from that account level. So when I grab each one of these, it's going to pull through that pricing, and we will walk through that account library and what that looks like later on. We also can do formulas for each one of those line items. So if I want it to be doing some math for me, converting something like square footage to cubic yardage or creating some inches for me, it can go ahead and do that. And I am going to have it do so for my slab on grade here. So for my demo example here, we are actually going to look at a bunch of different line items. So let's go ahead and do that takeoff together. We're just going to quickly do this. We're probably not going to do the most detailed takeoff, but just to give you an example of what it looks like to do a takeoff in 2D. So we're going to grab there that square footage. I can do cutouts and stuff of that elevator, but again, this is just that example. We have my square footage, and then it's doing the math for everything else for their Omni. And I can see all of the different calculations and the inputs that I have. So I'm inputting in here that it's a 6-inch thick slab, and I can go ahead if I want to, I could change that, and it's going to change those different elements for me. So now that I have it creating that quantity for me, I can go ahead and I can see that inside of my inventory. So as I go, we can always be taking a look at the inventory. And this is something where I can pop this out into another window. So as I'm doing my takeoffs, I'm probably going to pull that up on a different screen if I have multiple monitors. We can sort this in different ways and pivot to those different ways to sort this. So I can look at those different documents or classifications, takeoff types, so different ways that we can go ahead and view this. I'm actually going to go ahead and switch this maybe to the takeoff type, and then I can search here and find that slab on grade. For each one of these line items, I can see every area that it has shown up. So I only have one of this slab on grade, but if I go ahead and I do another takeoff here, so we'll get that part of that drive aisle in there, it's going to show me those two different quantities that are pulling up. And one thing that I love about this is I can click on those different ones and I can actually fit that to view. And if I am looking at a line item that is associated with a different page, it will actually flip me over to that different page or even to that 3D model and show that different elements for me. So now that we've taken a look at this and say, I like all of my takeoff, I'm done with my takeoff for now, I can go ahead and push these into my estimate. So when I click on there, it's going to show my different line items that I haven't already pushed over. I do have some items that I've already pushed over, and I will show you what that looks like in a little bit for how to adjust those different items. So we're going to send those over into my estimate, and now we can go ahead and we can view those, and we're going to pull into estimate here, where I can go ahead and look at this table and all of my appraising that's associated with each one of these items. This table allows me to filter, so I can filter by, say, my different takeoff types, my takeoff packages, my classifications, and sort those by and filter those by the different packages there, or whatever the different elements are that I'm sorting here by. And then we can also go ahead and change the grouping so we can pivot this. So if I want to start and look at by takeoff type and then by classification, I can go ahead and look at it in those different fashions. For the purposes of today, we're going to go ahead and look at it by document and then by takeoff type, so we can get right into that slab on grade that I just pushed over. So this was not existing before I started my takeoff of the slab on grade, and it is now going to pull through with all of that information, all of those different items, the quantities for it, as well as all of the pricing information. This pricing information, like I said, is pulling through from my account library. So if this material is not actually $175 a yard for this project and it's really $150, I can go ahead and I can change it, and I can adjust these different elements inside of Estimate here to come up with my pricing for this project. Inside of the labor costs, I can actually go ahead and I can pull these in with different crews and different labor, or I can just do it off of that price per my cubic yard. So a few different options that we have here to be able to pull through what those different elements look like as a part of the total labor costs. The same goes for equipment. Because I have my equipment and my labor at, again, that account level, I can look at what the equipment looks like on here, and I can apply, say, an excavator to this, which doesn't make sense for this example, but I can go ahead and I can do that. So different ways that we can price each one of these different elements associated with each line item. We are looking here at just what I have filtered down inside of the column. So I can actually turn on like my material factors, my material units, waste. So a lot of different items that we can turn on there and move around on this table. So if I want to look at my labor cost and set in front of my material costs, I can move how that exists and how that shows on this table. And then we can go ahead and change the density. So a lot that we can do there to kind of play around with these different views. And then if I want, I can actually dive into this specific item and look here at the cost inside of here. So you can go ahead and look at the labor or the equipment for each one of these and look at the formulas there for that. I can also see the organizational attributes, so things like my classifications and the documents that it came from, so I can see which ones that these are associated with. If I do have this grouped in different ways, so right now, again, I was grouped by my document, but if I pull that off and I just group this, say, by takeoff type, I actually may have different ones that are coming from different documents. So for example, here, this carpet that I have is pulling in from 2 different documents. And this caret allows me to look at each different one that is pulling in. So I can see the square footage from each one of those different documents that it's pulling in from, which is really cool to be able to see, because maybe my pricing is a little bit different for each one. And again, I can go ahead and I can override the quantities in here. It's going to show me here that I did override that. And then I can also override any of the material costs, labor costs, equipment costs for each one of these line items. Now, if we want to go back into our takeoff and we want to adjust any of the items. So I've done my initial takeoffs. Maybe I now have a new drawing set that has come out and I've got a new version of it, or I've just taken a pause. I did a bunch of different items and now I want to go ahead and do some more. I can go back into here and I can go ahead and adjust those different takeoffs. So on a 2D sheet, I can go ahead and I could, for example, I could take off some of my takeoffs types, or I could copy and add some more here of this specific takeoff. I'm just doing this so that my quantities are going to be changed when we go back into our estimate. Same would go here for my 3Ds. So I can go ahead into the 3D takeoff and I can do all of my takeoffs in here, and I can add different items to that takeoff. So if I want to take off ones that I haven't done before, I can go ahead and grab those and do the takeoffs. Allows me to do some very quick 3D takeoffs. Or if I have an existing one that I have already done, so let's go ahead and find this takeoff type. So we've got this curtain wall glazing. So maybe these didn't get added into it, and those are all a part of that glazing. We can add that in here. And now I've done the takeoff of all of those different elements. I wanted to include that, for example, with that glazing there. So that is updating my quantities. So on both those 2D and the 3D drawings, I did some quantity updates. And instead of pushing from the inventory, this time we're going to go back into Estimate. And we are going to find the button at the top right here where I can go ahead and I can see my takeoffs that have changed. So I can see some carpet where I have now some added quantities or deleted quantities, and I can accept or deny certain ones of these quantities. So I can go ahead and even see where this is coming from. So that quantity here and the existing quantity, and I can accept or decline each one. So we'll go ahead and accept that one. And then we can go ahead and find the next elements and accept or decline each one of those. So we can see all of those different changes that have been made and put them into our estimate. Now that we've gone over our 2D takeoffs or 3D takeoffs in the initial push into our estimate here, we've gone over the pricing and we've gone over what it looks like when you have changes to your different components and your prices, and what that push looks like for those updated quantities. We're going to go ahead and look at the cost markups. So the cost markups is almost like a summary for my estimate, where I can go ahead and I can apply things like contingencies if I want, profits, markups, bonds, general liability insurance, all those different items that I want, I can include in here. So we can do different groupings. So this one I have like a direct, and then I have subcontracts, my bonds and insurance. So I can add in those different sections. And within those sections, I can add in new markups and give it a new title, and then give it, if it's a markup, a margin, a bond, or a lump sum. And then for each one, I can apply a different percentage. So if I want this one to be 10%, I can grab that. And then I can apply that filter in different ways. So if I want to apply it specifically to a certain classification or a certain takeoff type, takeoff package, document, or location, I can go ahead and do so. So I can grab my takeoff package and associate that with a specific one. So if I want to apply 10% to my concrete takeoff, I can go ahead and do that. Or I could do 10% to this demo video, and then it's going to go ahead and pull that up for me there. And then at the bottom here, it's giving me my total for the overall project. So that is what it looks like inside of one specific project, doing my takeoff and all of my pricing. It's very seamless and fast. I love it. And I wish I had this when I was an estimator. This would have been game-changing for me. So now let's go ahead and look at our library. So if we have account admin access, we can go into the account admin, and then we can go into our library. So there's two big elements in here that are going to influence our pre-construction. That is our classifications and pre-construction. So classifications, this is organizational structures. So you can import those different structures like your CSI master format. That is something that we can import in here. Inside of the pre-construction library, this is where we're housing all of our line items, as well as our costs. So our equipment, our labor, and our crews. And this is again at the account level so that I can apply all of these elements to each project so that I don't have to go ahead and recreate the wheel every time. So the equipment, this allows me to pull in all of my equipment that I have and my rates for it, the unit rates, my labor. So every single labor that I have, I can pull in that into here. And then my crews. So each crew can have different labor associated with it. So this concrete crew has a few different members of different areas of labor that are pulled in here. This labor, equipment, and the crews are all tied to my different line items. So when I go into adding a line item, and I can go ahead and I can import this, but each item, I can go ahead and I can grab a specific labor or a specific crew. So if I want to go ahead and grab that concrete crew, I can grab that there and I can adjust what their productivity is for that crew. And same would go for the equipment. I can go ahead and I can grab in the equipment that's associated with that crew or any extra equipment that I do have. And then the material cost, this is something that we can grab and pull in here what our rates are. And you can even have it do things like waste and rounding different factors in here so that I can have my material costs in the right units with the right amount of waste for each one. So maybe my concrete has actually some waste associated with it. I can go ahead and add a like 3% waste factor onto that. And so it can go ahead and it can do that math for me if I don't have that inside of my specific line item on the takeoff type in that formula box. We also can go ahead and we can filter on here and we can change around this table and pull in different columns and move around those columns. So a lot of flexibility here with looking at this table inside of the pre-construction library. It's really awesome having things at the account level tied down to the project level so that I have consistency on my different projects. And when I go ahead and I do my different takeoffs, it's already pulling together all of that pricing for me. Inside of the project templates, this is where I can go ahead and I can have a project template with my existing takeoff types. So when I go ahead and I create a new project, I want to do my takeoffs, I can have all of my takeoff types already mapped to my library, and I can just start doing my takeoffs and have pricing really done super fast for me. Again, this would have saved me so much time when I was an estimator in the industry. And that is everything that I wanted to show you today for the new Autodesk Estimate inside of the pre-construction bundle for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Thanks for following along with me today.